Put down your baby and pick up a beer. Dad Jokes is back with a brand new episode. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two dads going through the journey of fatherhood while you all listen to us as we go through it. Brandon, what is going on, my friend?
Man, I think I say this more often than not, but I'm excited. I feel like we've gone to like an every 2 week schedule, and I got a lot of stuff to kind of get off my chest. So I'm excited to talk with you.
I'll tell you what, having kids can make a short period of time seem like long because, like, you're right. We went to this 2 week span, and there's a lot of stuff that happens in 2 weeks with kids, even if it's not exciting to anyone else. As a parent, it seems like there's a lot going on. Like every day, I don't know, 2 weeks, there's a lot. Like I said, I got a whole list. I'm sure you got a list. It's exciting.
Yeah, but you can't beat it. It's constant tiredness and constant excitement.
Well, you guys are getting ready to go into round two. I can't wait. We probably only got one or two more recordings before you guys are parents of two. And I literally can't wait for so many reasons. One, I'm excited for you guys because it is awesome. Two, I'm excited because you don't know until you know. And it's one of those things where then I can just be like, yep, you know now. So it's great.
I'm not going to complain about anything to you. I don't want to give you the satisfaction.
It's not even complaining. It's just your life is just different. And again, some of it's not even like it's bad. It's just different. And I don't know. And I'm sure if we ever had a third, people who have three are probably laughing too because they probably know. And then if you got four or more, you're just crazy. So I can't even touch you.
Right now, 3 is looking like a stretch. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I was there exactly with you. So I don't blame you. But I don't know. The emotions you're gonna go through in the next month or two, it's gonna be so many highs and just different like extremes that it'll be interesting to see what you say a couple months from now. I'll be interested to see what you say. So, but enough of what's happening in the future. What's happened in the past, Brandon? What's happened these last couple weeks in the Banks household?
I'm going to get to that, but first I'm going to give you a dad joke because I'm excited about mine.
Oh, that's right. I almost skipped our dad joke. Look at me.
And
we go
excited kind of fits this joke to a degree.
Okay.
Or maybe lack of excitement.
Oh.
Jerry, what tech company champions flaccid penises?
Oh, gosh. Tech company?
What tech company champions flaccid penises?
Something soft. I don't know.
What soft? Microsoft.
There you go.
Microsoft. Ran across that one, thought it was pretty good. And it actually made Kelsey chuckle, which is always a barometer of a decent joke because she laughs at nothing that I have to say.
That's a
Microsoft.
bad combo. That's a bad combo, Dad.
Especially with what we're talking about.
That is a bad combo.
But if you're listening to this podcast, at least we know it worked.
Yes, exactly.
Put him.
Still counts. All
right, I can start talking about my last couple of weeks. As we brought up kind of plenty of times before, Bryce is in soccer. We are taking a hiatus after the new baby's born. Not going to be in the next session. We're actually on the waiting list for the next session, but it filled up before we could sign up.
Waiting list.
So yeah, I mean those things fill up quick. But he's been doing tremendous this session up until last week. And last week, for whatever reason, and Kelsey was on the fence about going anyway, and she might not go to the next one. But he was infatuated with her, and she's at the stage of her pregnancy where she don't really feel like moving too much. We are, and I'll get into it a little bit.
You know?
Yeah, she doesn't. And normally, so this is the first time she ever brought like a lawn chair to put on the sidelines over anything. Normally she's standing up or like sitting on the ground over there, but it's uncomfortable for her. So he was infatuated with her. Like we would try to do stuff and he would just say, "Want to show mommy? Want to show mommy?" And always looking to run over her. He's never been more into her doing it. Normally it's fine. So I think going forward is going to make more sense for us to have some father-son time alone without her being involved. I think it's going to be
Let me ask
better
you, Brandon,
for everybody.
Does he understand what's going on? Does he know there's a baby? Or does he not? Does that not clicked?
I don't think it has clicked with him what a baby actually means. Like, he'll point to kids his age and say baby. He'll point to little babies and say baby. If you ask him where's baby brother, he'll point to his stomach and his mom's stomach. He can say KJ. Like, he knows baby brother's name is KJ. He like that. Like, I'd say the periphery has clicked, but I don't think he's gonna get it until the kid's here, to tell you the truth. And even then, it's probably gonna take a little bit. And maybe we can do a better job of explaining it, but he understands everything but the nuance, and the nuance is probably the important part of it. So, I don't know for sure exactly if he gets it, but needless to say, she's not going to be coming to too many more soccers if he's acting like that, because she can't move as much as she wants to right now. My birthday was last week, in between the last episode, and Bryce and his mom spoiled me with a great dinner. But it is fun. Like I'm not really into like cake and blowing out the candles, but Bryce is, and so it was super fun to put a candle out and him and I blow it out together. He sang me happy birthday, which is he got through it without whining, which is progress for him. We did. I know if you've been listening for a while, you know we took Bryce to an allergist about 6 months ago, because we've been having some. We had a little bit of a scare with peanut butter, nothing that messed with like the respiratory system, but he basically immediately threw up. Every blood test, every allergy test has come back negative. So we're at the point where basically we had the consultation with the allergist. She basically said we had two options. We could do the peanut butter test basically at her office, or we can do it at home. And during this visit, we got there at 8:30. Yeah, we got there at 8:30, and allergist didn't actually come see us till like 9:50. So we decided very quickly that we were going to do this at home. So we've given Bryce his first little bit of peanut butter, no reaction to it at all, which is great. So we'll continue to keep introducing it to him, and hopefully it was just kind of a couple isolated incidents. But they did. If you have any kids going through any kind of like what looks like it may be a food allergy, we brought this up in the previous episode, but look at the difference between allergy and FPIES, FPIES. FPIES is more of a gut reaction, as opposed to like something messing with like their breathing, things like that. We do have an EpiPen just in case now, but FPIES is something that could affect your kid, and it'd be something that you have to worry about, but it's more of them throwing up as a result of eating it, and they could grow out of it as well as the allergy as well. But that was something I didn't know before we started this process, and it's what we thought Bryce was going to end up having, but it looks so far so good that he's not. Couple other quick things, and we'll get into your last couple weeks, Jerry. I guess a cute thing that he's been doing lately, he randomly like doesn't pronounce the first letter of things. Okay. So it's silly, but it's cute. And I don't know, like if he slows down, he can pronounce it. But if he's just talking regularly, that's kind of one of those things where like me and Kelsey understand exactly what he's saying, but if you guys were around him, you'd probably be like, what did this kid just say? But as an example, he's playing hard with Riley earlier and basically reaching his hand in his mouth to get a ball out, and he kept telling Riley to rop it. Rop it, Riley. Rop the ball. Rop it. It's just something I've been noticing. He's been doing it for a while, but it's super cool. And then last Bryce thing, we went to a preschool open house today. A recent episode, we talked about basically choosing schools and looking at it. And that, I tell you, it was weird walking the halls of the school. Some of the things we talked about, like basically you got to, in our area for this particular school, you got to register next month for the fall, and there's a very good chance that you won't get in. And a lot of different places are like this right now. Now, this is for early threes. I know, it's just a bunch of kids. And it's hard to get into.
Of preschools.
This is actually a public school. So It's not even anything crazy at this point. But we're looking at a few different options, but that was the first opportunity we had to kind of tour a school. One thing to pay attention to is a requirement for them is that not only is your child potty trained, which we're working on, but they have to be basically independent. Like, so the teacher can walk them to the bathroom, but the teachers do not go in the bathroom with them. So they have to be able to independently use the bathroom, be able to wipe themselves effectively if needed, like flush the toilet, do all that, which was eye-opening for us to a degree, because the potty training thing, I feel confident we're going to have that. The teachers did not seem to be phased at all. They basically were like, once a kid kind of sees the other kids like all doing it themselves, it's not really been that big of an issue, but it's not a part of it that I really have thought about before at all. Excuse me. And then the last thing is we've been talking about the second baby. Kelsey had a doctor's appointment recently, and they basically told her that in 2 weeks at her last ultrasound, we're scheduling a time for the C-section to happen, and it's going to be end of this month or beginning of next month. And they not so subtly told her that there haven't been during this pregnancy, but if there are any blood pressure issues at all, then have your hospital bag ready, because we're probably going to schedule you soon after that that visit on the 21st. So that I'm sitting in the basement right now that definitely needs some me to do some work to it. It went from being a man cave in Bryce's room to being basically where we threw everything while we're getting Bryce moved over. So we got some work to do in the next couple of weeks. And I said last thing already, but I'll bring it up during the next podcast episode. We're hitting the Daniel Tiger exhibit this weekend. So we're doing our first family, Bryce, Kelsey, and myself. We're staying in a hotel. There's an exhibit in Grand Rapids, and I'm excited. We've been talking to Bryce about Daniel Tiger all week and getting him really excited about it. So but more to follow on that in the next couple of weeks. What you guys been? I was long-winded today. What you guys been up to?
Good stuff. Yeah. We've been up to a lot too. Like I was looking through stuff and I'm like, man, did we talk about this last time? Because it seemed like we did a lot. One of the first things we did is my niece and nephew have birthdays close together. They live on the west side of the state, and so we went over there for a birthday party, a joint birthday party for my goddaughter and my nephew, which is super cool because they both were geeked for their birthdays still, and then my nephew, he's in the age where he's loving toys and presents, so he was all about it. He asked my sister probably 50 times if he could open presents before it was time. But what was really cool too is they got a ton of snow. They had like over a foot of snow or something like that, and they kind of have a little hill in their backyard. So I took Peyton out, got her dressed up, and took her out and actually went sledding for the first time. I thought she was gonna hate it. I literally thought she was gonna hate it, and I kind of was like, "This, I didn't even really want to do it because we were about to leave." And I'm like, "All right, let's go." I got talked into it, which I'm happy I did. And she loved it. She thought it was great. She went sledding with me, went down with her uncle, went down with her aunt, went down with my mom, and was having fun throwing snowballs at Dad that her Uncle Jonah showed her how to do. She had a blast. It was great. She got cold at the end, you could tell. And it's what's funny too, Brandon, is after that, because she was wearing these mittens, she's been putting mittens on in the house like all the time. And she doesn't put her thumbs in the thumb holes, so she just has her hands, and it just she Bryce all the time has them on. So, but that was super fun. So that was a good time. And then quickly after that, I can't remember if it was the next day, but it was soon after that, Avery said her first word, and it was just like Peyton.
What was that?
It was Dada, which is a huge win for me, and it was great because we're sitting there. Me and Macy are sitting there, and Avery was on the floor, and I heard something. But you know, sometimes as parents, you're like, and I literally looked at her and I go, did she just say Dada? And Macy kind of looked at me and was like, what? She didn't say Dada. I'm like, I think she said Dada. And then so I started going like, Dad, Dad, Dad to her, and I really didn't think she was going to say anything back. And she literally started doing it, and I was like, yes. And then it was like all she was saying for a while. Now, I will say, Brandon, this was like a couple weeks ago, like right after we recorded, like a couple days after we recorded last time. But tonight, for the first time, Avery said "mama." It was her second word. She said "mama" tonight.
It's pretty quick.
Yeah, she said, Mama. She was eating, and me and Macy were cleaning up, and we both I was like, did she just say Mama? And she's like, I heard it, and then she kept doing it, and she's done it quite a few times. I got Dada on video really quickly. Macy got Mama on video, but she's kind of crying while saying it, so it's kind of funny because the Mama video, she's like crying while saying Mama. She's super happy when she's saying Dada, so I got to use that to my advantage.
Yeah.
But super cute and super cool. Avery's been she's been like I said, she's growing really fast. She's at that stage where it just seems like everything is accelerated. It's moving quickly. She's not crawling, but she 100% could if she wanted to, and she pulls herself places and rolls everywhere, and like she's super close. Like she definitely could do it. She just doesn't. It's just one of those things where it's not like she doesn't understand that that's a thing. So maybe we need to work a little bit more on that. But honestly, she's moving everywhere so easily. It's not really been an issue. And she's been really up and down. She's been super happy sometimes, and we're like, man, this kid's great. And then other times she's just been like terrible. Like the last couple of days, she's been like horrible at night, like before bedtime, and then not great at night. It's weird with a kid, Brandon. As you guys have KJ and the second kid, it's funny because sometimes you'll look at your wife and you'll be like, man, she's been really good lately, and it's been like 2 days. And then you'll be like, she's been terrible lately, and it's been like 2 days. So in this last 2 weeks, she's been terrible and great. And like there's no really rhyme or reason. It just seems to be day to day. I think she might be teething a little bit again. She's coming close to another leap, but she's definitely growing quickly, which is good. But also it's like a little bit at that point where you're like, oh man, she's starting to get big, you know.
One thing I haven't asked you about her before, but is there anything that you feel like she is learning more quickly or develop more quickly than Peyton because she has Peyton to kind of watch? Have you noticed anything like that yet?
So I've been trying to look out for that. It's funny you said that because I actually feel like it might almost be, and I don't know. I'm trying to remember the time frames. Like she seems to be doing well, but like I felt like Peyton really early wanted to climb on things and stuff, and Avery hasn't had that need yet. I feel like they talked right around the same time, but I haven't picked up on that. I will say though that Peyton definitely had like the separation anxiety and like the fear of people leaving and stuff more than like Avery. I feel like Avery's used to being able to be with multiple. Like she's good with lots of people. She's good with being put down a lot of times. So I feel like probably because she has been more that part of it's been easier. But nothing that yet. I think some of that stuff will come though as she starts to be able to like walk and like actually interact and play more, which is actually one of the things too. We're at one of the points now where Peyton's always been really good with her, but you know, she kind of would like play with her when she wanted to and kind of like, you know, pay attention to her for 30 seconds and then go do her own thing, you know. But lately she's actually like been really interested in like playing with her. Like she like wants to include her in everything. And she'll be like today I got her out of the car and she goes, get Sissy out, you know, like, and then like if I put her in the crib, she's like, put Sissy in.
Yeah.
And like she wants to be around her sister, which is super cute. And wants, you know, like if I'm brushing her hair, she wants me to brush Sissy's hair, or, you know, she's really like into her sister in a positive way, which is really cool. So that's been super cute. We also did a lot of things over the last 2 weeks. We had people over for one of the playoff games for the Lions, which there was a bunch of kids over. That was a lot of fun. The kids did great. Then my dad came over for the next game, and she had to spend some time with her grandpa, and she was loving on him. That was a lot of fun because she doesn't see him always that often, so that was good, and she was definitely wanting grandpa's attention. And then, you know, Peyton, though, has had a little bit, we talked about it last podcast, but she's had a little bit of the terrible twos, definitely. She seems to get emotional and upset at least a couple times a day. Typically always centered around clothes and food are just two hot topics now. I mean, clothes is just an issue with that girl 24/7.
I think you got like 16 more years of that, dog.
It's man, it's terrible with clothes. It's just tough. And the grandparents, it's so bad that grandparents will text us, I got pants on her today, because she like always wants to only wear dresses. Like it's just like legit. It's bad. But you know, she's also a lot of fun when she's in a good mood. A sad thing or a bad thing is I talked about a couple months ago, Brandon, she had really tough issues like going to the bathroom. She didn't poop for a while, and it was like really kind of traumatic, and she was struggling. She had that again. She actually just went tonight for the first time in a few days and was definitely in a ton of pain. So that's tough. I don't know. We got to figure out if it's diet or something going on with her, because obviously now it's not just the one time. It's been multiple times, and it's just she is in like a lot of pain when it's happening and just really struggles. So I don't know, again, if it's diet or something else that we can maybe help out with. So we're going to probably look more into that and talk to the pediatrician. But that's tough. I mean, she finally went tonight, though, which was good.
And what the listeners don't know is we got in the back of our heads, we got an issue that a friend's kid had where that happened for about a week. And they couldn't go, and they actually had to go to the hospital. So that it's tough to. I can imagine from your end for you guys to go through that with that in the back of your head too.
Yes, I mean, for days she will like randomly just like be straining and like crying practically because she can't go for like 15, 20 minutes at a time, and then she'll be fine for an hour or two and then do it again, and then you just. So it's tough, but she did finally go. And then lastly, Brandon, today was the first day of swim class for Peyton and Avery. Peyton's had gone to swim class before, but this was the first time Avery had ever gone, and then this is obviously the first time that we've done them together. So it's kind of interesting. I left right from work, went right to the place where we go to the swim class. Macy met me there. The kids were being kind of crazy, so I felt bad. We had to get them changed, and which is a whole thing because Peyton again.
Why did I sign up for 2 kids?
Oh my gosh, man! It was a pain with 2 people. We're in the family locker room. There's tons of other people in there. We're trying to get Peyton changed. She doesn't want to put a bathing suit on because, again, she hates changing or any clothes. Avery was cranky. We got to get changed. But the good news is, Brandon, once we got in the water, they both did really, really well. Avery loved it. Well, she loves water, so we kind of were expecting that. But I was honestly nervous about Peyton. And Peyton, after a little bit, like she wasn't bad, but she was kind of like shy, and then she started warming up and was doing great, and actually listening to the teacher, doing what they were telling her, and she had a lot of fun. Now getting them changed back into normal clothes and leaving was also an adventure. So we'll see how this all goes, but it was a lot of fun. But it will show you, Brandon. I mean, it's 2 kids. I mean, again, if you had, I don't even know what we would have done if you had 3. But it's a lot trying to organize clothes and changing and keeping people safe, not falling. I mean, it was a lot, but it was a good time. So they did swim class together, and we got definitely quite a few more weeks of that. But it was cool because we both got to be there and be a part of it. Where with Peyton, it was mostly Macy, and I came a couple times, but it didn't work out with my work schedule. So this one hopefully will work out, and I'm actually excited too because we're going to gymnastics, which is normally a class that Peyton takes when I'm at work this weekend. So I'll get to go see her at her gymnastics class too, so that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, we've been up to a lot, Brandon, and it's been chaotic as always, but a lot of fun as always too.
It sounds like we both have a lot on our plates right now, but we'll and I'm saying that you got me thinking about swim class and how hard it was getting Bryce like efficiently, because it feels like we're always kind of in a rush because we're both coming out of work, and then you got the time that you got it. And you're trying to get him in and out and into the class quickly. And
the only good news, Brandon, is everyone there is in the same boat.
Is in the same, yeah.
Correct. I mean, and you could tell it's just chaos, and everyone's got different versions of chaos, right? So that makes you feel good at least. It's nobody has all their stuff together. So, but it is chaos, and it was a little chaotic. But the fact that they both behaved and it went well made it worth it. If they would have been little terrors, that would have been troublesome, but they weren't, so that was good. But Brandon, piece of baby gear that you got this week, you got anything to go over baby gear wise?
Okay. So my piece of baby gear, we can thank Kelsey like we can thank her for 90% of the pieces of baby gear. I think she finds reason to buy stuff, and she can use the podcast as an excuse
Smart.
as to why Bryce has a ton. But this is actually on sale right now at Sam's Club. So recently, my in-laws were over helping put the closet system in for Bryce's new room. And Bryce was infatuated with the power drill that my in-law was using. He's always interested when I'm using mine as well. And so they have a Bosch toy power tool set that Kelsey saw, cool. And it's on clearance right now at Sam's. So it's normally $40. Has a power drill, has a saw.
No, it's not, Macy. It's not on sale.
It is on sale. So it got marked down from $40 to $23, which is pretty significant. You can get it online or in store, but you got to have a Sam's Club membership. But I mean, it has a lot. It got a little light, has goggles, headphones, a saw, screwdriver, stuff like that. So he has not got it yet. That is going to be a present that he gets when his little brother gets here. But it's something that jumped out at me, and I wanted to make sure our listeners knew because I don't know how long it'll be on sale.
All right. That is pretty cool. Although all the little things in it, I know sound like selling points to me. I'm just thinking of things that get lost or put in random places and end up all over the house.
They're actually a pretty good size. So you can probably keep good track on them.
There you go. My piece of baby gear, Brandon, is much smaller. It's actually something I bought for Avery for Christmas, and ironically, so did someone else. I can't remember. I think it was her grandparents that did too. But so she has two of them. But anyways, it's the Anzimo, Anzimo baby sensory teething toy. And basically what it is this little toy that has like a ton of little rubber knobs on it that the baby can bite on. And there's also like rings, and it rattles, and you can twist it and make a little noise. Anyways, Avery loves it, chews on it all the time, and it's $9 on Amazon. And you can put it in the car seat with them. You can put it, when they're hanging on the floor in their chair or wherever they're at. And it's cheap, and it doesn't take up a lot of space. And like I said, she likes it, and it's good for teething too, because it's like I said, rubber knobs. So, and they're like, some of them have like different like bumps and stuff on them or grooves. So she plays with it quite a bit. And when you're that age, there's not a ton of toys that they love. But that seems to be one that she actually likes a decent amount. And it's funny, I asked Macy a piece of baby gear that I should go over, and I had that written down. And then when she was thinking, she mentioned it too. So we kind of had the same thought. So obviously it's good enough where we both thought of it. So I thought I'd mention it, especially if you got young kids. I would say a kid under 1 for sure. I would recommend it, for any baby as soon as they're okay to put stuff in their mouths and whatnot.
You can't beat it.
You can't. Under $10, you definitely can't beat that, because when they get older,
you always seem to have like, I think I got like a good deal on something, and then you come in with something that's like $4 or 57 cents.
Well, yeah, because the one who spends the money in the family isn't on the podcast. She's the one who buys it and does. And then like Kelsey tells you, Macy just doesn't tell me what stuff costs, and so I don't want to look it up for the podcast.
Okay, I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this, but Kelsey, fast forward 30 seconds. So when we originally bought this, or I say when she did, she was telling me like basically, hey, I got this crazy deal. I was at Sam's, and I only paid $14 for this thing. Actually, I think she said $13. She's like, it was originally priced $50. I was like, oh man, that's a crazy deal. Like, and I always tell her, I don't need to know if you already bought it, I don't need to know what it costs. Don't even tell me. Like, whatever.
Right.
Don't even tell me.
Done.
You work, you got your own money. I ain't worried about it. But she volunteers this information. We're preparing for the podcast. I was like, hey, can you send me the link to that? And what did you pay for it again? And then she was like, I think it was like $16 on it. I'm like, I knew what she told me. I was like, that ain't what you told me you paid for it. She's like, well, it was still a great deal, yada, yada, yada. I get the link. It was originally priced $10 less than what she said it was originally priced. And we paid $10 more than what she originally paid. So in my mind, I just lost $20. So yeah,
that's great. She ratted on herself.
Yeah, she did. Unintentionally. I'm going to pay for that.
Yeah, for sure you are, especially because you got another kid on the way.
Yeah, you're right.
But Brandon, this week we have a topic. It's kind of exciting. One of our listeners reached out to us last week, which we appreciate every single time one of you guys do that. Again, we love hearing from each and every single one of you. We try to do our best to respond. But we had someone reach out that hadn't reached out before, and they mentioned a topic idea, and I actually thought it was a good idea because of my experience, but also because of what you guys are currently going through with the second baby on the way. And basically they said they're expecting their first child, and they wanted to know what are some questions you should ask the doctor or the OB, as a dad when you go in there, because it is kind of intimidating. You're like, what should I ask? What should I not ask? What should I say? What should I not say? So we're going to kind of go over a list of questions that you can ask or that you might want to ask if you're either a first-time dad or a second-time dad or a third-time dad. Doesn't matter. These are questions that you might want to ask. Because I can tell you, from my experience, Brandon, I asked a bunch of questions the first time, and then the second time, I didn't remember half the stuff. So it wasn't like, oh, I asked it the first time, I don't need to ask it again, because you forget. You go on to being the parent, and you forget the pregnancy stage. So
I actually took notes the first time. So I like consult old notes that I wrote or old podcast episodes, stuff like that. But like you said, shout out to Marcus. He actually wrote a really touching comment on one of our Facebook posts as well. And like you and I were standing next to each other at work. You showed me. And then Marcus, that brought a little tear to a young man's eye. It made me feel good. What you said was the reason that we honestly got into this and do it. So we always really appreciate any comments or feedback that we get, positive or negative. If there's something you guys want to hear, just let us know. But I definitely want to make sure we shout out Marcus like you just did. We appreciate you.
For sure, we definitely do. But yeah, Brandon, so questions you can ask or should ask is, I guess we can categorize them into different categories or of what isn't, at what stages. So early on, some good questions, if you don't know, are asking your OB like, hey, when should we assume the baby can be born? Like, at what stage should we really be prepared for this to happen? Obviously, anything can happen, but that's a good question to ask because like you guys, for example, they say like once 37 weeks comes, that's pretty much when a baby is considered full term. And at that point in time, 37 weeks on is kind of what I was told when you can expect the baby to be born. And then usually you're not going to go much longer than a week after the baby is due before they're going to do something. So really 37 to 41 weeks is kind of that window where you should be expecting it, unless there's something that arises or changes, or if you have twins, for example. But that's a question that definitely is worth asking. Another one worth asking early on is basically, is there anything at whatever stage you're at that your wife shouldn't or significant other shouldn't be doing? So is there any limitations? Is there anything they should stop doing now or need to be doing different, or that I can help out with to make things better? So, if there's limitations physically speaking or even dietary speaking, those are things that you want to know so that you can help them while they're at home. Those are a couple early questions, Brandon. And what are some other early questions that you guys asked or maybe thought about asking?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to think about when we first found out we were pregnant, like, from a process standpoint, it kind of sucks because we found out super early. Like, we knew, I want to say 2 to 3 weeks in. I might be missing that by a week, but the doctor wouldn't schedule us with Bryce until, I want to say, it was 10 weeks. Like, you basically were waiting, I was waiting like a month and a half to be able to talk to this doctor. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, I'm all over the internet looking at things to ask, yada, yada, yada. So with you and I work schedule, one thing that was important for me, especially during COVID, this first go around, things have been a little bit lax. But A, what appointments can I come to? B, how often are the appointments? Yep. I wanted basically a schedule, and then Kelsey and I, that's when we really started using our shared calendar, because I wasn't missing an appointment. That was just my mentality on it. If there was an ultrasound involved, I wanted to be there. And the other thing is just from a dad perspective, all we can really do is support. We're not carrying a baby. The last thing I want, and you don't want to necessarily think like this, but I don't want any news that my wife to hear that I'm not there to also offer support on. Right. Which is sometimes, it's not what you want to think about, but those are things that happen at these appointments at times. They're searching for a baby's heartbeat. They're looking for the baby using the ultrasound machine, things like that. So you want to make sure that you are there for support, but also because it's my kid. I want to make sure I'm as involved as possible. So that was a big thing for us. what can and what should mom take is a very good question to ask in the beginning. What prenatal vitamins are you recommending? Typically, if you are intentionally trying to have a child, that's something that you start taking before or while you're trying. But also, if you haven't, what does the doctor recommend? And that goes along the lines of what Jerry mentioned with what can they eat, what can they take, and I also wanted to know what to expect. Like you hear the horror stories from people you work with, other people that you know, but from the doctor's perspective, what are symptoms I can expect my wife to have? How can I help? What are things that we can do together to help work through them? So those were. I'd say as we found out Bryce was born, those are things that are important to ask. And then there's a few other things in the first trimester that we asked as well, but I'll defer to you to keep going.
Yeah, another big one that I don't think I did ask. I think we had the information, but it's definitely important is who should you contact in the case of an emergency or complications or issues, right? Like usually your wife is going to have that information, but like what if she can't call or what if she can't communicate stuff to you? So you want to know what you should do in certain situations. If there's an emergency that arises or there's questions and stuff like that, who should you call? Who should you ask for? That's an important thing to ask early on, especially if they don't mention it. They might, and they probably will, but if they don't, I definitely recommend asking that. And then another question is that I actually like a lot is, do you recommend any books or literature for me to read or apps? Is there something that you think that would be, as your experience as a doctor, that you think would be valuable for me to read, my wife to read, us both to read? That can go a long way. So they probably
Doc,
have seen it.
What podcast would you recommend we listen to?
Yeah, what podcast? We need to get in front of OBs. We need to get in front of OBs and tell them to be recommending us. Just new brainwave idea. But yeah, so asking them what you should be researching or reading, things like that, can be beneficial for you. They might even have a book there or something like that. Like, oh, this is a book I recommend to everyone. Check it out. So those are a couple other questions early on that I think are worth asking, Brandon. You said you had a couple other for first trimester.
Yeah, for sure. The elephant in the room for me was how quickly can we find out for sure what the heck we're having? I know your experience was the exact opposite, but I mentioned the appointments earlier and knowing how often you're going to have to commit if you're going to every one. But you also want to know what those appointments are. Some appointments are more important than others. So you got like this one is another question, but basically asking about options for genetic testing. Some people decide not to do it. Some people decide to do it. That's completely up to you. But it does give you an idea of what to potentially expect going forward when your child is born as well. But you got anatomy scan. So as you're looking at the schedule of what's to come, you need to know what the really important ones are to pay attention to as well. And then the other thing for me in like the second trimester was what are the signs of like preterm labor. Jerry mentioned what do we do in case of emergency. What should we be paying attention to? You should be well versed in what Braxton Hicks is and the kind of the definition of that, even though that starts really in the third trimester. Because and I know we've experienced this way more this pregnancy than we did with Bryce, but Kelsey's been in a lot of pain, been very uncomfortable throughout the pregnancy. And my big thing always, I'm getting her to describe the symptoms, but also like it's hard to differentiate what is like important enough to have a doctor talk to a doctor about, what's an emergency or what's just normal. And you got to have pretty good communication with your wife. And also she needs to be communicating with her doctor. And in these cases, I would rather over communicate than under communicate from that perspective.
Yep. Another good one too that I kind of was confused at early on, but like one, what is the due date? So if you don't know the exact due date, ask them what the due date is, and then ask them like what that means and how it can change, because technically I found out that you can't change the due date unless it changes by, I think it's more than 5 days. So unless they have something that says it's going to be 5 days difference, they'll keep the same due date. Even if stuff is tracking 3 days off or 4 days off, they don't change your due date. So, asking.
It's also weird how they come up with the due date. Which
it's from like a
it's
certain
based on the
date,
last period.
Correct.
It's literally based on the last period.
When you actually got pregnant.
Yeah, and sometimes you know exactly when that happened.
Correct. Like, so it is, but it's worth asking about. And then I remember with Peyton, I don't think they even said our due date. Like, it was on something, and Macy kind of like had figured it out, but I'm like, they didn't tell us when our due date. Like, I was like tripping about it, but like I could ask, right? Like,
that probably drove you crazy.
Oh, it did. I was kind of like stressed out about it. And then another thing, kind of you mentioned it with Braxton Hicks, but like, what are some warning signs or things that we should look out for? Like, hey, if this happens, I should be concerned. Like, when should we look to contact a doctor, basically? So what is normal? What is not normal? That's a good question to ask, because especially the first pregnancy, they're going to go through things that they don't know what's normal or not normal. So you definitely want to ask so that you can kind of tell what is normal and not. And if you hear it, even though they might have heard it, it's good, because then if they're kind of experiencing it, they might be freaking out a little bit, or kind of like, and you can kind of be like, well, is it this? Is it, you can kind of talk them through it because of what the doctor said, and that might be helpful to be a support position from that knowledge.
For sure. Some other things that we asked early, actually Kelsey was ahead of this, but like as she was choosing her OB, but you definitely want to know this before the child is born. How far is the doctor willing to take it, for lack of a better way to put it, before a C-section is considered as an option? And each doctor's answer to this may be a little bit different. It was important for Kelsey to try the vaginal birth route first and foremost, second and third foremost. But she wanted an OB that kind of aligned with what she wanted from that perspective, and wasn't necessarily just trying to, for lack of a better way to put it with me, just like kind of get it over with, get the kid out, because that's a very major surgery that's happening. It can be traumatic for both mom and baby. So you want to make sure early on that what you want aligns with what the OB wants, and or you make that very clear from your perspective. You want to know how to create a birth plan. So is that involving your OB? Are you getting others involved based on what you want? And then as we kind of gear towards actually getting ready for the birth, what can you do to prepare for labor and delivery? From Dad's perspective, what can you do what breathing exercises can you do with your child? Are there any childbirthing classes that your doctor recommends for you both to take, so that you know exactly what to do as well? And then the last thing, I guess not last thing, but for right now, what pain relief options do you want? So this is a conversation that you should research yourselves before you have a conversation with your doctor, but also ask your doctor what pain relief options are available for you during labor, so you know what choices you have.
Yeah, those are all good ones, Brandon. Another one that's kind of key that sometimes you don't think about, but ask the OB, are you the one who's going to personally be there when the baby is being delivered?
1,000%.
And what if you're not? Because they obviously can't, if it's not you, then who is it? And are we going to meet them ahead of time? Or tell me about them? Like Macy, the first time we went through the midwives, so we knew it was going to be one of the team, right? And we tried to meet multiple people on the team. But the second time, it was our OB was supposed to be there, and she ended up being there, but we didn't see her till the very, very end, and that was definitely a concern of ours. So asking who's going to be delivering the baby, and then what's plan B, C, and D, if it's not the actual person there. So that's important. And then along the same lines, probably the most important question to me, or at least the one that was on my mind, is what to expect the day of, right? What is the process? Okay, how do we know to come in? when we come in, what happens then? Where do we go? What is, like kind of figuring out like what is actually going to happen the day of the birth, or like in their minds, like if it goes smoothly. And that can be important too, because they can kind of set expectations for you based on delivering hundreds or thousands of babies versus just kind of you in your head having an idea of what you think it might be like. So those are two big ones for me, Brandon.
Yeah, for sure. And another thing to do, because as crazy as it is, we don't know anyone who has our birth story with Bryce and what we had to go through. And that's not something that they would have prepped us for necessarily either. So listening to podcasts like this will kind of, that's the second time I've kind of given us a pat on the back. I probably need to calm down. But
no, pat away.
That could be a joke, Padawan. But ultimately, you should do your research. There are birth stories on YouTube. Be careful not to listen to just like the horror stories, because you don't want to.
Exactly. Be careful.
And actually, from a dad's perspective, you might want to screen that, because sometimes it's a little easier for us to hear some of that, because it's not actually happening to us. But you do need to have an idea of what you're expecting. To Jerry's point, we didn't see our OB. We saw him the first visit, and go back and listen to Bryce's birth story to kind of hear everything that we went through there. But both times he didn't really come in until the end. Like Jerry said, is you're dealing with a bunch of other people who are at the hospital 24/7 as opposed to that. But speaking of the hospital, what signs indicate that I'm going into labor? Like how do you know that it's one thing versus, hey, we need to actually grab these bags that we've had packed up and go to the hospital. So what signs indicate it? When should I head to the hospital? And then from dad, ask them straight up, how can you be involved in the delivery? And come up with a plan with them and with your partner. Know beforehand if you want to be the one that can cut the umbilical cord. Discuss everything and how you want to be involved. And honestly, Jerry, I think we've had a pretty comprehensive list. That's my final one.
The last two things I'll say is, one, if they say things you don't understand, or if they like are testing for certain things you don't know what they're testing for, ask. There's nothing wrong with asking, hey, what are you testing for there? Or, hey, I don't know what that means. Can you explain it to me? Don't be shy. It's your kid and your wife or significant other you're talking about. Ask the questions if it comes up and you don't know what they're talking about. And then secondly, I've been a part of this in the positive way and a negative way, but you are the father. You have every right to be there and ask questions and be a part of the process. So don't feel like you aren't allowed to talk or be a part of it. Because I've been in the room where they looked at me like I could have been like the janitor or the random dude that just was coming in to like grab a clipboard and leave, because they don't even look. They literally don't acknowledge you, and they almost talk about you like you're not there. And I've also been in there where they were really inclusive and do a great job including me. So either way, you're the dad, you're the father. You're allowed to be a part of the conversation. Don't be shy about that. Don't feel like you're not. Obviously, Mom started the show.
I'm too big for that, Jerry. I crack some doctors' heads.
Oh man, I mean, and most of our experiences were good, but I did have a couple where I'm like, what is happening right now? They're literally asking Macy, like, basically if her husband abuses her while I'm sitting next to her, and I'm like, what is happening? It was the weirdest thing ever.
Man, what kind of vibes were you giving off, Jerry?
Well, it's like, no, they're going through a questionnaire, like, and that's on the questionnaire.
I know what you're talking about.
But it's like, it was crazy because like Macy's like looking at me, I'm like, what is happening like right now? And like she's acting like I'm not in the room. Like, another thing too,
at that point, you told her, no.
Well, the crazy part is I'm like literally thinking in my head, which I know you can't say this, but you're like, do you really think if like someone was that while I'm sitting next to her, they're gonna be like, yeah, he does? Like, come on, it's just dumb. But what?
At least
I know they
got
gotta
to
do
the bathroom.
Like, I know they gotta do it, but it just seemed like I was like, this is crazy. So, anyways, those are some questions, like you said, Brandon. You can find lots more online, or listening to podcasts, or reading books. So, ask away. Don't be afraid to ask. Write them down when you think of them too, because you might think of one and not have an appointment for a week or two. So write it down. Consult with your wife before going in on your appointments too, because they might have similar ones or different ones, or already know the answer. So it's always good to have that conversation on the way to the doctor's office too. So But that's a good place to stop. Again, thank you, Marcus, for the topic idea. It was a good one to talk about that we hadn't before. I know we touched on some things before, but not in depth like we did today. So definitely appreciate the topic idea. But Brandon, then you know what time that means. It means it's time for my dad joke. Are you ready?
Jerry, I'm waiting with bated breath.
So, Brandon, why can't pirates finish the alphabet?
They can't get past ARG.
No, they always get lost at sea.
I actually like that one.
Yes.
That's pretty
good.
good.
It's very dad jokey. But no, I thought that was clever. So, not too bad. But yeah, like basically this is the part of the show where we get to do the shameless plug and tell all of you to like us on all our social media pages, write reviews. But really this episode happened because someone told us they wanted us to hear about a topic. So always give us your recommendations. We try to make it happen if we can. We like hearing from each and every single one of you. Don't be shy. We're not shy, so talk to us. Tell us what you think. Tell your friends about us. That's the biggest compliment you can give. If you have anyone that's a dad, whether they've been a dad for a long time, whether they're about to be a dad, tell them to listen to us. We like to have more listeners and more people engaged, so we really, really, really appreciate all you guys. We just hit over 50,000 listeners or downloads all time a couple weeks ago, so again, it's been a fun ride, and we want to keep growing and keep hearing from all of you guys. So, but until next time, as always, I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you've been listening to Dad Jokes.